Welcome again to another great podcast. My name is Charles Alvarez. I'm the CEO of Cornerstone Growth Solutions. We love having some great guests who have built some great businesses, and Joe Saunders is not the exception. Today, what he's going to share with us are the six principles that he uses to build multi-million dollar businesses. Joe, welcome to the show, man.
Hey, Charles, thanks for having me. Look forward to the discussion and appreciate what you do with this podcast.
Thanks, man. So tell me a little bit about you and what your background is and how you arrived at this spot.
Sure. So I'm founder and CEO of RunSafe Security. Also happen to be chairman of a great Gen AI platform company as well called Ask Sage. But at RunSafe Security, we I set out to protect critical infrastructure from cyber attack. And we believe our mission is to make critical infrastructure safe, so the economy can thrive and we don't give the upper hand to adversaries like China and other countries. And so with that, having a key mission, I think is part of it. But in the background, how I got there is, in the 90s, I was a quant an analyst type modeling derivatives portfolios. Sort of got burned out of being a management consultant and a quant person. Started my first company in 1999 and only had modest gains, but did sell, the company for a gain. Then I joined a wonderful company called Targus Info, where we went from 0 to 150 million in recurring revenue in a short amount of time. And I feel that's where I grew up professionally. And shout out to all my friends and colleagues at Targus Info. Hundreds of people ultimately, I think, would say the exact same thing I just said. So I'm one of many who got the benefit of, having a great ride at a great company. And after Targus Info was sold, I had started helping different cyber companies with their go-to-market strategy and with their, business model and with their, approach, to build great companies themselves. And along the way, I met my co-founder, Doug Britton, who had a passion about changing the economics of cyber defense, shifting things back in the favor of the defender instead of the offense. And we aligned around that fundamental principle of shifting in an asymmetric way, defense, cyber defense, for the benefit of society, for the benefit of critical infrastructure, and for the benefit of our customers. And that was the genesis of RunSafe. So we've been operating since 2018, and growing really fast at this point, protecting people across aerospace defense, energy and industrial automation, medical devices, transportation, and some other high tech industries. And so that's a little bit about me.
Well, welcome. I'm really thankful that you are on. You mentioned right there a little bit earlier that you started a business and kind of was tough at the beginning, and then it seems like something must have changed in order to really experience the growth that you have, which I'm sure is part, if not in total, the six principles you have. So. What are those six principles, Joe? I think our audience would be able to benefit greatly from it. And if you could go through each one and just explain each one and give some examples of how that helped you grow your business, that would be helpful.
Yeah, I think part of growing a company and achieving high revenue, growth, and also just, building a business the right way that becomes valuable. I believe you have to have a foundation of who you are. It needs to be an extension of, the founder, and you have to build a culture, and the culture all needs to, sync up with what you're trying to do as a company. And so, along the way, I have picked up some principles. A lot of them come from Targus Info, but some of them come from my own personal experience, even my mom, and then things I've observed on the way. So I could go through each one individually. So the first one is kind of a mindset, and that is at RunSafe. And again, shout out to my Targus Info fans. We plow the dirt with our face. And what that means to me, and what that means to my RunSafe colleagues is, we all jump in and do work. We don't judge, tell other people what to do and tell them how to do it and tell them they're doing it wrong. We need to kind of jump in and do work ourselves and set the tone by example. So you'll see everyone in the company roll up their sleeves and work hard. And part of that is to push the envelope a little bit. So plow the dirt with your face. Folks will get out there and kind of push the envelope a bit, and we want to encourage people to do that. So I think that's principle one.
So can you give me a practical example of what that looks like, Joe?
Yeah, I mean, I would say our chief marketing officer at RunSafe, she is every bit as able to go in and do any aspect of the marketing program herself. Now, of course, she sets up a good structure and has teammates do that stuff. But when it comes down to kind of really figuring out what the marketing program, what the campaign is going to be, how we're going to execute it, what's the data behind it and all that messiness behind, getting things aligned, getting the data that we need in the formats we need it. She's able to jump in and do that. And, I think a lot of people think, oh, I'm a strategist. Well, we do strategy, but we also execute, and she's an exceptional person to execute marketing programs. It's because she knows how to do it and she could do it herself. And so I think that is a great example.
So with that, I mean, obviously, one of my favorite quotes is with great power comes great responsibility, right? So how do you when you allow people to make decisions and to make decisions and to really take the bull by the horns, how do you make sure that they don't go, for lack of a better word, that they don't go rogue?
Yeah, I think that's where the other principles come into play. So they reinforce what we're trying to do as a company. So you need to be very clear where you want to go. And I'll hit the other principles in general, but a key thing in that is we want people to push the envelope. Uh, and I think one key aspect before we get to what keeps them in line is that they're also not fearful to make a mistake. And we have a mantra that if you make a mistake, you just admit it, and we will let it go at that. You say what you learned from it, and you move on. So that's really the second principle is, not only do you plow the dirt with your face, but if you make a mistake, admit it, tell us what you learned about it, and then we all move on. We all learn from the mistakes. I have something I call the School of Hard Knocks, and it's the 25 lessons from mistakes I've made in my career over the past 25 years. And I've made some, pretty significant mistakes along the way. And if you just keep making the same mistakes over and over and over again, and if you don't admit it and you don't step up, there's a problem with that. But if you
Right.
make a mistake, just admit it and we all move on. So I think that's a key aspect is people need to know that, we've got their back ultimately. But that then gets to, a couple of the other principles. So I'd be happy to go in those because those are the ones that I think that keep people in line, and don't go rogue, as you say.
Sure, please, please, please.
Yeah. So the third one then, so plow the dirt with your face, then uh, if you make a mistake, admit it. But the third one I call above the line versus below the line principles of business. And that is, precisely on point. What keeps people in line is what are the characteristics of good business for RunSafe or for whichever company you're working for. And for us, we want to ensure that our customers have the tools they need to implement our technology, that we offer a standard product with standard delivery and standard service. Things are typically automated, and our product is well defined. And so with that, we want to sell solutions and we want to have our solutions really solve known problems that customers have. We're not a services company. We're not doing one-off implementations. We're not supporting. We want to drive people into a product solution that encompasses their requirements and their needs, and that we can support those things in a standard process. So, if a sales engineer hears a salesperson agreeing that we're going to go build something new that we've never built before, and there's no other customers that are going to use it, and we're going to charge them some extra money on the side. Well, that's a definition of below the line. That's custom, that's one off, it's not repeatable. And those are the kinds of things that drag down the company. They consume scarce resources, they hurt the valuation. So we need to have clear definition of what our product landscape is, but we want to have clear definitions of our products so we can sell standard products and keep those things above the line. So above the line is one of the major things that keeps people in line and not go rogue. But the companion to above the line, the below the line, is something one of my colleagues, Matt, brought to my attention a long time ago, and it was a product philosophy. So the fourth one is what I call 310N. And you might think that the above the line, below the line is so rigid. How would you ever introduce anything new? Well, we introduce things in phases. So if we think something's repeatable and worth building, and it's going to require some engineering effort and things like that, we want to sort of scope it into three phases. The first phase is the first three customers where we know we're still going to learn a lot about what the requirements are, and we want to be open-minded, and we might even do some of the implementation. And then we get to the next phase, the 10, where our customers are starting to implement themselves, and we'll pick up, lessons learned that we may have missed in the first phase. But then at that point, and these numbers are arbitrary, you'd have to adjust it for your company.
Sure.
But then you're ready for the end phase. And that means you have strong product market fit, your product is differentiated, your customers are able to implement it easily, and you can, achieve those above the line, principles. So above the line, you can go below the line if you're launching something new, but then you need to have a structured process to go from 3 to 10 to N, and that keeps people in line.
Makes sense. So, what are the consequences that you put into your business that if somebody does not follow the line and stay above the line, what are the measures that you put into place to make sure that they're following it, first of all? What is the reward for that? And what are some consequences that you might have in place if they do not stay above the line?
Yeah, so I think in general, what we're talking about is the company culture. And since everybody knows what these principles are, I don't really have to enforce them. People enforce them themselves. And what it does is it creates dialogue. And so if you think about plowing the dirt with your face, making a mistake, admit it, and everyone moves on. And then the above the line principles, what that means is everyone's sort of empowered to then discuss these things. And it forces people to really have the decision-making power themselves to stay in line and drive to the 310N and drive high growth companies. Now, if people repeatedly make mistakes, um, like I said earlier, that's a problem, especially if they make the same mistakes over and over and over again. But I think the culture reinforces the principles, and so people will naturally either self-select out or get in line. And I tend to find that if people follow those principles, they can be more and more successful. And so it's meant to be encouraging and give people guidelines and steer them, into the right direction without having to be, enforcing every single action everyone takes. We don't want to punish people and make them fearful of making mistakes. And that just leads to real top-down organization that is rigid. And so we want people to push the envelope themselves and accept that some people will make mistakes.
Sure. And it sounds like it's in their best interest to follow the process.
Absolutely. And it's because we all want to work at a great company that is successful, and high growth companies that are profitable. Everyone gets excited about that. And I got a taste of that at Targus Info. And I've seen other kinds of companies that are not successful. And some don't have a strong identity. And I often think that that's a key aspect. It sounds crazy when you're starting a company, to think about, okay, I'm going to build this SaaS product and I'm just going to sell. I'm going to be great. But there's a human element to it all. And I think you have to tap into that and give people sort of the guidelines. Everyone wants to know the direction they're going and where at the end, looks like. And so if you give them a taste of what that is and some guardrails around it and forgive them for mistakes, then people are motivated to do good work.
Yep. Yep. And I mean, they want to be part of a winning team, correct?
Yeah, being on a winning team, I think solves a lot of problems. Uh, revenue solves, lots of problems,
So,
covers all warts, as they say.
so question for you as you go through these, and I think these are so incredible. If I were you, I would write a book. I think this. I mean, I'm glad that we're going to be able to share this with our audience because I think this is great. But here's a question. How did you learn this? Like, did you read a book? Is it the School of Hard Knocks? How did you come across these principles? I know we have more to go to, but before we continue with any others, how did you come across this? How did you develop this?
So I didn't develop it. I inherited this. And again, I shout out to my all my colleagues at Targus Info because three of the six principles resulted from George Moore, the founder and CEO of Targus Info. And we'll get to the last one, which I think is probably the most important one, in a few minutes. But plow the dirt with your face is something he said all the time. It was kind of his mantra. He lived by it. Above the line, below the line. He, every year at the start of the year at our company kickoff, he went through the above the line, below the line principles every year and said, you must understand these. This is what builds a great company. And so it was just put in our heads and we all, knew what they were. We could name all the components of above the line and all the components of below the line because we always talked about it. And he really enforced it. And so a lot of it came from George Moore. And I want to come back to him a bit when we talk about the last one here. But I think he was an amazing entrepreneur. He also built many high growth companies and sold them. He also got into, other businesses outside of technology. So he was one of the largest crystal companies selling crystal glass in China. And so he just had a knack for turning businesses into, high profit businesses and high growth companies. And I think it's from him where he would say the term the school of hard knocks actually comes from him. He didn't learn anything from, say, going to school. He said, I got my PhD from the school of hard knocks. And that's where I obviously co-opted that as well. And he just left an indelible mark, I think, on everyone who worked at Targus Info. And that's why I give a shout out to all of them, because every so often we get back together or there's an interaction in social media, one of these references is always made. And there's actually a video we used to call Georgisms. And it was all these sayings that he said that sometimes everyone was confused by. But if you looked at the message behind the message, there was a brilliance, sort of like Yogi Berra. There was a genius behind it, nonetheless.
Yeah, that's fantastic. What a mentor, what an asset, what a great opportunity for you and the team to be able to learn from somebody with that kind of wisdom. I mean, that's pretty incredible. What are some of the other principles, Joe?
Yeah, so the last two, and I want to credit the CEO of Sage and one of my board members at RunSafe Security. So Joe Adiego is a board member at RunSafe Security, and he's really the first person that kind of opened my eyes that there's a correlation between how fast your product velocity is and how able you are to scale your business for growth. And so folks with high product velocity tend to be in companies that are making corrections fast that and you can imagine that if you find a little mistake in your sales process because your technology doesn't work quite the way it is, well, that could be a speed bump for that sale, but if you repeat that every sale, then you're doomed.
Right.
And so how fast can you fix that problem and correct it, not only for the prospect before you, but for every sale thereafter. And so you have to have high product velocity and you have to be responsive to the market to really understand what those needs are. So you need a process and a culture of high product velocity. Now it sort of depends on what product you're in. There's a reason cars are take 3 to 5 years to roll off the manufacturing line from design to, first production car. You wouldn't want a car designed and built in 30 days
Right.
from scratch. No one would admit that that's safe.
Correct.
And web delivery of applications is, a much different extreme than that. You can make changes 5 times a day to your product. So what's your product velocity for the market you're in? And can you be very, very efficient and high velocity? So Joe Adiego, board member of RunSafe Security, partner at Alsop Louis, and investor at Brave Capital, he is the one who really opened my eyes to that and kind of connected that to business growth, and that's a key aspect. But Nicholas Ceylon, from founder and CEO of Sage, which is a wonderful company, in part because Nicholas is probably the most extreme version of product velocity I've ever seen in my life. And the company does, if you can imagine this, deliver 5 updates a day to the US government systems, maintaining authority to operate, maintaining FedRAMP certifications and whatnot. They are pushing updates to US government implementations as much as 5 times a day. And with that, Nicholas has led the company from zero to over 20 million in ARR in 24 months. And I think the core reason is Nicholas and team's ability to deliver at extreme product velocity. And so I think he is the poster child for what product velocity can do for a business and what product velocity means for a SaaS company and how it connects. If you ever needed a proof point for what Joe Adiego shared with me, product velocity is correlated with sales growth. Nicholas lives and breathes it better than anybody I've ever seen in my 25, 30 years in professional experience. And so Ask Sage embodies extreme product velocity.
That's incredible. That's awesome. So, when it comes to product velocity, obviously the other component of that obviously is quality. So I'm starting to see how each of these principles integrate with each other, which is you cannot put one ahead of the other. They kind of work to me, what it sounds like, Joe, in unison together. Is that correct?
100%. And you need to emphasize all of them. And there's a bit of give and take among them. And like I said, no business is the exact same. And no SaaS product is the exact same. You don't have the same types of customers in every case. And so, I think what you build in an industrial automation, facility or a weapons program or, safety of flight, if you're producing mission critical software for us in the aviation system is far different than what you're building for a game, for, an individual, not just the connectivity and the rigor in which you might test and comply with safety standards would be different. And so those have different characteristics, but I do think the dimensions all are the same. So you need to move faster than your customers. You need to be, in tune with your customers with 310N. You need to have a mindset of having profitable solution that scales economically. And so those three in particular, above the line 310N and extreme product velocity, go hand in hand. And then the first two, plow the dirt with your face. And if you make a mistake and admit it, that's really a cultural thing. But then these others are sort of product strategy and go-to-market things.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Um, so tell us about the I think there's one more remaining principle if I'm correct. What's the last one which I find fascinating. So go ahead.
Well, I appreciate it. It happens to be my favorite, and of course, it is motivated and uh, created in my mind by George Moore in terms of how you apply it to business. But the principle is have the courage of your convictions. And he used to actually extend that to salespeople and say, have the courage of your convictions, but don't lose the deal. And that's an example of sort of his Yogi Berra-ism. You're like, well, what does that mean? Have the courage of your conviction, and then I just like lower the price. That feels like a violation of above the line, right? Like we want to charge premium prices or, something of value. But he never actually meant, don't lose the deal on price. What he said is if you do everything right, if you plow the dirt, if you follow the sales process, if you confirm, all the aspects in the sale, really qualify situation, understand the urgency, understand the customer's requirements, everything else. If you execute the sales process right, then you should be confident that even if your solution is priced higher than the other person, you know you're also bringing more value. So if you have the courage and conviction, you won't lose the deal is the way I like to modify it because I'm neither Yogi Berra nor George Moore. Um, but that's what it is, and it's a special thing, to me and to all my colleagues at RunSafe, because every year, in honor of these principles and in honor of George, who passed away more than 10 years ago now, I think 12 years. I give out what I call the Courage and Conviction Award, and it's really the person that embodies all these other principles, does something to move the business forward. So every year I give one person the Courage and Conviction Award, and as sort of a lasting legacy of George Moore, he had built a brand new business. He built a whiskey distillery in Virginia called the Virginia Distillery Company, and he produced a whiskey called Courage and Conviction. And his son Gareth and George's wife, who's the chairman, Gareth is the CEO now of the whiskey company, the distillery. They produce Courage and Conviction every year, and they have different variations of it. And so I give a bottle of Courage and Conviction whiskey out to the employee as a recognition of that. But that's the most coveted award at RunSafe. The person who gets that is really getting the George Moore Courage and Conviction Award is a special thing. So I do it to honor George. I do it to recognize principles that we use to build the company at RunSafe. And certainly, again, I'll do one more shout out to my colleagues at Targus Info because courage and conviction I know is meaningful to them as well. And so it's meaningful to the folks at RunSafe. I don't think I can get through delivering the Courage and Conviction Award at our company kickoff every year without choking up myself. Recognizing the impact George had on my life and how I think at least three of these have come from him. And I think there's a lot of companies out there, some of my former colleagues who've started companies and have sold them and had high, fast growth companies. I know, much like in the NFL, when you have a cradle of coaches that go out to coach other teams, they bring something from that championship team, and Targus Info is one of those championship teams. And it's my way to recognize George and what he's done for all of us. And other people are even more wildly successful than Joe Saunders or RunSafe, but I know they have a part of this in them as well.
It's probably the best six principles I've heard together when it comes to running a business. So this is exceptional. So Joe, thank you so much for being with us. Is there anything else that you would like to add that you haven't added already?
Well, I went back when he asked me to describe RunSafe Security. I described the mission, which is to make critical infrastructure safe so the economy can thrive and we don't give the upper hand to China and other adversaries. And I think that purpose is important. We connect our mission to, even national security, even though we're a private company, and it gives us a purpose in which all this makes sense. And so, having that purpose and also then maybe having some timelines where these principles play out. You can only do three for so long before you get to 10. And, you can only plow the dirt with your face so long before you see results. So you do need to have a time element that keeps you honest. Otherwise, people will burn out and, it doesn't work. And so I guess I would just add the guardrails around time and purpose, because that gives everyone sort of, line of sight where they're going. And then also, some breaks along the way so they don't burn out.
Outstanding. So if somebody wants to learn more about your company, or excuse me, your companies, or wanted to learn more about you, what is the best way for them to do that?
Yeah. So, Joe Saunders, I'm available on LinkedIn, but certainly visit us at runsafesecurity.com. We're doing some interesting things and have some cool tech. Ultimately, we're helping product manufacturers to insert security into their tooling. So critical infrastructure is protected from cyber attacks. And if you want to learn about that, RunSafe Security is a great .com is a great resource for that. And you also can visit if you want to get a cloud agnostic, large language model agnostic, highly secure Gen AI platform. You can visit AskSage.ai and sign up for free.
Outstanding. Joe, thank you so much for being with us. Excellent, excellent content and information. I think this is was very helpful just for me to be able to see those principles working all together. So thank you so much for being on our podcast. And I really appreciate your time today and sharing with us your knowledge and your expertise. So thank you so much, Joe.
Thank you, Charles. Take care.
Take care.